welcome to Pecan Corner. I'm Tina, and today I'm going to make moussaka with dehydrated eggplant and ground lamb. Moussaka is a casserole with lamb and eggplant in it, and you can make it with ground beef if you don't have lamb. I think I've said before that one of my favorite things to dehydrate is eggplant, because it rehydrates and can be used exactly like it would be fresh, and you really, Paul actually says it tastes less bitter and tastes better after it's been dehydrated. I usually dehydrate it in rounds, because most of the time we make eggplant parm with it. But Aldi's had ground lamb on sale at a really good price, so I bought some of that, and I'm gonna make that tonight. Now this one's I dehydrated into sticks, but for this purpose I'm just going to break them into small pieces, and you don't have to do that, but I just like it better when it's all in bite-sized pieces. I use like I said, it just depends on what you make. I was thinking of doing the fried eggplant sticks when I did those in the sticks like that. Now I'm just going to pour some boiling water over these eggplants, and I'm going to let them sit. Actually, they'll probably sit for a couple of hours. They really only need about 30 minutes, but for this purpose, I'm going to let them sit for a little while longer. Okay, and then we'll be back. Okay, while the eggplant is soaking, I'm going to just prep some other things. I'm adapting somewhat the Good Housekeeping cookbook recipe, and make it slightly different, but not too different. Part of that is some onion. We found when we were doing a strict keto diet that we could use a lot less onion than most recipes called for without noticing any difference. So whereas this recipe calls for 1 large onion chopped, I think a half of a large onion is going to be plenty. Got some dry breadcrumbs laid out here. We'll use that. We'll cook this onion in with our meat in a little bit. Okay, and some garlic. Sorry. Can't stand to have anything on my hands. There's 1 clove of garlic and 1 small one. When I was growing up, I think the family only cooked with what they called garlic salt, which was mostly powdered garlic. They didn't use fresh garlic very often. You couldn't get it year-round. And when you did buy it in the grocery store, it was these little tiny cloves. They were about this big around, and half the time they'd be dried out by the time you got them. So, I've got a garlic press. Let me get that. This one was my mother-in-law's. I had another one that the kids got me, but it broke. So the old standby still works. You can mince it by hand too if you want to. And I've got my Munster cheese thawing out. I buy cheese when it's on sale, and then I just freeze it and use it when we need it. My neighbor gave me, when I was picking the asparagus the other day, my neighbor was out there and I shared, first time I'd had enough to share. So I was able to share some with them, and she gave me some of her parsley. She was real surprised. She planted this last year in her garden and it came back, and had a nice big clump of it there. So I bought some red potatoes today. I'm going to make Paul some parsley potatoes later this week, but get the stems off of there. So it's nice to have this fresh parsley this early. I need a 1/4 cup of this, so this little bit will be just about right. Okay, all right, now then, let's you set all this aside, and I'll start getting the meat together, and I'll be right back. To show you real quick, the eggplant, the water that it's soaking in will look like a dark tea or beef broth by the time you're done, but I'm going to pour that off and squeeze all that excess water out of it. That's part of that bitterness going out with it. Okay, first off, I'm cooking the eggplant in a little oil. I've drained it completely and squeezed most of the water out. So now it's soft like it would be if it were fresh. And then I'm going to rinse my bowl here. I've got to drain it after I cook it, so I'm just going to use this same bowl again. Put some paper towels in it. There we go. Because I'll layer it back together with the casserole when the meat's ready to put in. Okay, there we go. Just going to let this cook until it browns up a little bit. Might need a little bit more oil here. Okay, there we go. Not going to make you watch while I brown the whole thing. I'll be right back. Okay, now my eggplant's all done. I'm going to pour it out, let it drain here. And I'm going to use this same skillet to brown my lamb in. Set it off the stove there for a minute. Oh, I'm not going to just pull it open. Let's see if this works. No, I don't have the strength to do that. Okay, oops. There we go. trick for getting ground meat to break up easily when you're frying it is to add just a small amount of water. This is about a quarter cup is all I'm adding to that, and it'll soften the meat and help it separate. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. See how it kind of turns it to mush? That helps it to separate real nicely when it's browned, so you won't have lots of big chunks in there. They do this same thing to hamburger meat that they're going to make patties out of when they want to have them the exact same weight and size in fast food places, but then of course the media makes it look horrible because they show it to you raw. Well, that's what meat looks like. In most restaurants, they don't have to worry about portion control to that extreme, but in a place like McDonald's, everyone is supposed to be exact, so they go to some great extremes to emulsify the meat so that the exact same portions will come together all the time. Okay, now we're going to add our salt. I'm going to use a teaspoon and a half of salt. Okay, and some ground black pepper. I like to cook the black pepper in with my meat. I think it tastes better. Aren't these cool? Paul found these on, is it Groupon that you got these on, Paul? He got a set of them. There's a salt grinder and this one, and it's pretty nifty for grinding our own black pepper, especially at the table. But as you saw, it's real handy when you're cooking too, because you only need the one hand, so I'm not having to stand there and grind. If you have arthritis or something, it's also good. Not putting a lot of, it might help if I turn my heat on. I wondered why my meat wasn't cooking well there. Let's see, what else are we putting in here? Okay, we're going to wait on the rest of the seasonings until just a little bit. I want my meat to brown, and then I'll add the garlic and onion, which I've got right here. So we'll be back. Okay, now the meat's browned, so I'm adding my onion and garlic. And I'm going to let my onion cook till it's soft. Garlic and lamb just go together. I can't imagine eating lamb without it. When I cook lamb chops, I just use Montreal steak seasoning on them to season them. We don't have lamb very often. It's so expensive, so we have to wait till it's on sale. But like I said, Aldi's carries lamb pretty often, and at Easter time they have it. And we've bought a boneless leg of lamb there, and we've bought nice lamb roast there. And they're very good, and they're very, very reasonable priced. So I've been surprised. I didn't go to Aldi when they first opened, because when they first opened here, they didn't take checks and they didn't take American Express, which I don't use MasterCard or Visa. So it was unless I happened to have cash on me. There wasn't much way for me to pay. But now they take American Express, so So I shop there a lot more often. They have some great bargains. Today they had baby portobello mushrooms for 99 cents a carton, which is a really good price for any mushrooms, but especially for those nice little ones. So I bought 2 more pounds of the lamb and put it in the freezer for another time. And you know, $6 a pound is a lot, but it wasn't that long ago that we were paying nearly that for our ground beef. And for a special meal at Easter time, it's certainly worth it. We don't eat out hardly ever, so if you think about it, you know, we'll get this dish will make 2 meals for both of us out of it, and all total, even adding everything else in there, it won't cost me but maybe $8.50 to cook, to make it. So divide that by 4 meals, and you know, there's $2 and a few pennies per meal. So it's a pretty frugal thing to do. Okay, I'll be back when this is done. Okay, now, all right, well, if this calls for half a cup of dry white wine, which I'm out of, and I had pulled out the vermouth, which is dry white wine, but Paul suggested that dry sherry would be a better replacement. So I'm adding half a cup of dry sherry, and like I said, you can use any dry red wine, or you can leave that out. But I've noticed, we don't drink, but I have noticed that the flavor of cooking with wine really does make a difference, and I really enjoy it. So we have a well-stocked liquor cabinet, but it's only for cooking. So then I'm going to add my parsley and a quarter teaspoon of thyme, maybe a little more than that, since that's Paul's favorite herb. Okay, and half a cup of dry breadcrumbs. I'm going to mix this all together. And I'm going to set it aside because I want to use this same skillet to make the sauce in. Let me get this all mixed up here and I'll pour it up. Now, I'm going to use some butter. About 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to melt. I'm just going to make a creamy white sauce. You can also use chicken broth if you want to, but I prefer to make this one with milk. Get my butter melted there. If you hear a funny noise over there in the sink when I'm running water, I'm hoarding my wastewater from rinsing hands and things to water my plants with. I've got lots of new things planted this year, and our city water is, well, it's become very extremely expensive, and so I try to find ways to conserve whenever I can. But our summers are so hot that I have to water pretty much every few days the first year that things are in the ground. After that, they can get themselves well established. But for right now, I have to water. Now I'm going to add some flour. Let that cook. You want to let, when you make a sauce, whether it's a cream gravy or a white sauce, you want to let the flour cook a little bit to cook that that raw taste out of it. If you don't, I know if you don't do it, you get kind of a sweet flavor to the gravy that can be really good in a gravy for breakfast. But for a dish like this, I want to cook that out. I'm not browning the flour though. We're not making a roux. We're just letting it cook. All right, here we go. Now we'll add our milk and some water. Now we'll stir it. You can use a whisk if you want to be sure you don't get lumpy gravy. That's a whisk works real well and it doesn't splatter like I just did. So I never used a whisk before Carl and I got married, hardly ever. And he has gotten me in the habit of making use of it. It really does make a difference. It makes it a lot easier to get sauces smooth. And things seem to cook better because they're being stirred more effectively. Turn it up. Be back when this is done. Okay, now it's starting to bubble and thicken up. If you need to, you can add a little more liquid if it gets a little too thick. There we go. There we go. I don't want it too thick because it's going to bake, so it needs to be a little bit thin in order to bake well. Okay. Now then, here we go. Now we're going to put it all together. I'm going to layer things in here. And I've got some Munster cheese here. This called for either feta or Munster. How you can substitute one of those for the other, I have no idea. I don't think that's going to happen. So, you set that right over there. Okay, I've got my oven preheated to, it's hot. Got my oven preheated to 350. I'm gonna layer half of my eggplant into here. Take a towel out there. There we go. And then I'm gonna add half of my meat. Oops, can you see what I'm doing? Hold on right here. You can see. Better? There we go. All right. Get that all spread out. Now I'm going to layer it with cheese. Munster gets crumbly when it's been frozen, but that's okay for this purpose. It's got paper between it, so I can't just crumble it in there. Okay, there we go. All right, now there we go. And I'm going to put some of my sauce over it. Something to dip with here. I'm not going to use quite half the sauce because I want most of it to pour over the top. just enough to have a layer of it in there. And it'll melt that Munster cheese, which is soft already, you know, and kind of turn it into a creamy, cheesy sauce. Okay, now we're going to put the rest of our eggplant. And the rest of our meat. Get every last little good drop of that. Don't want to waste a bit of it. I've seen some moussaka recipes that call for using tomatoes in them, but I haven't ever made one like that. This is another one of those dishes that Paul turned me on to. I had never had it before. I had bought lamb before I met Paul. I wasn't a very good cook, and but I liked to try new foods, so I had bought lamb and I had tried to cook it according to the recipes that I found, but they either weren't good recipes or they weren't the kind of recipe that me and my family would like, and so I didn't have much success with it. All right, now let's put some more cheese on there. Alrighty, and get a few of these crumbles here. Okay. Alright, there we go. Now then. Let's put the rest of our sauce on there. Might as well just use the rest of this Munster that I've got here too. If there's only 2 more slices, yeah, we'll just put those in there too. There we go. Okay. There we go now. Now we're going to put this into the oven and we're going to bake it at 350 for about 30 to 40 minutes until it's really hot and bubbly all the way through. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, 30 minutes and it was ready to go. I forgot to put nutmeg in it, so I'm going to add a little bit of that now. The nutmeg, you could even mix it right in with the white sauce, but I like it with this dish, so I'm just grating some over the top here. I use whole nutmegs. I found out a long time ago that they have a lot more flavor than already ground nutmeg does. So I use this little grater that I bought a century ago, I think, at what's the port store? Gone blank. Anyway. And this container, I bought this, I bought whole nutmegs in this about 20 years ago, and I just refill it because it's so good, it's perfect to hold them with. All right, here we go. Let's put some of it here. It smells delicious. It's very rich, so you don't need a huge, enormous serving of it. Whoops, and there we go. Thanks a bunch. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy finding uses for dehydrated foods, and I hope you'll try dehydrating your eggplant because it's really good. I have another video that talks about how I do it and shows how I make eggplant parm with that. All right, thanks a bunch.